I think you feel really confident that it was divinely ordered. Maybe all of this, our friendship, you becoming our...
The autumn fog hung thick over Windsor Castle as Prince William descended into the Queen's former private apartment. He wasn't searching for secrets, just a simple embroidered handkerchief for the upcoming memorial service. But what he discovered in that locked safe would shatter his family forever. Behind an obsidian rug, the heavy iron door swung open. Inside, no crown jewels, no state papers, just a dark green leather diary with edges worn smooth by years of royal hands. A thin red thread marked a specific page, Queen Elizabeth's personal signal that someone needed to read what she'd written. William's fingers trembled as he opened to the marked entry. 19th of March, 2018. Meghan told me today that she had once been pregnant by her former husband, 16 weeks along, but claimed he did not want a child with a biracial actress and forced her to terminate the pregnancy. The words cut through the silence like broken glass, but it was what came next that stopped William's heart cold. Her tears rose flawlessly and stopped just as perfectly. None fell. I have known countless women who truly lost children. They do not behave this way. The grandmother who saw everything. Have you ever wondered what really happened behind those palace walls? What secrets were whispered in corridors where cameras never reached? The Queen's diary revealed a woman who understood human nature with surgical precision. Entry after entry documented a performance so carefully orchestrated that it fooled nearly everyone, except the one person who had spent 7 decades reading people's souls. 23rd March, 2018. Amelia reports that a prenatal follow-up slip for a 16-week appointment fell from Meghan's handbag in the dressing room. Meghan snatched it back instantly like someone caught in the act.
There's a spare in the air, my brother being the heir and me being the spare, and so...
But here's where the story becomes truly devastating. The Queen didn't act immediately. She didn't summon lawyers or issue decrees. Instead, she did something far more heartbreaking. She gave her beloved grandson one final chance to tell the truth. September 12th, 2019. I asked Harry only one question. Are you absolutely certain that everything Meghan has told you is true? Harry erupted. The first time in his life he ever raised his voice at me. Can you imagine the pain of knowing your grandson chose a lie over you? Of watching someone you raised with unconditional love turn away in your final days? The maid who remembered everything. While the palace machinery continued its gilded rotations, a young woman named Amelia Harper carried a secret that would eventually explode into the open. At 29, with dark brown hair always tied in a low ponytail and gray eyes that rarely met others directly, Amelia possessed what the staff called a photographic memory. She could recall the exact placement of 48 silver spoons after a single glance at a state banquet. But it was a different kind of memory that would change history. March 2018. Amelia stood behind the Queen as Meghan shared her tragic story. She poured Earl Grey tea with perfectly steady hands while her heart hammered against her ribs. She watched Meghan press a hand to her abdomen as if feeling a phantom kick. She saw tears rise on cue and stop on cue.
And I think a lot of that gets lost in what can be super dehumanizing when you look at the clickbait culture. And
3 days later, while organizing Meghan's dressing room, papers slipped from a pale yellow handbag. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Obstetrics reappointment 16 weeks. Patient, Rachel Meghan Markle. Date, October 10th, 2017. The date that would later prove impossible, just 2 weeks before Meghan's engagement announcement to Harry. Meghan burst into the room, her face draining of color. She snatched the papers back with such violence that a diamond earring clattered to the floor. "Never touch my things!" she hissed. The fragile, wounded woman from the Queen's drawing room had vanished. In her place stood someone else entirely. The conversation in the shadows. That same night, working the late shift, Amelia heard voices echoing from a service corridor, an area deliberately kept without cameras for architectural preservation. She froze behind a 300-year-old oak door, barely breathing. You have to follow the story exactly, Trevor. You're the ex-husband who forced me to abort because you didn't want a child with a biracial actress. I'll cry at the right moments. If they ask for documents, you say I destroyed everything because it hurt too much." The voice was unmistakably Meghan's. "Yes, I know you want the Queen's lily brooch. I know how to remove it from the vault without leaving a trace. Trust me. Do you understand what this means? This wasn't just about a fabricated story."
Because it feels really inclusive and there's representation and it's just like a sweet love story.
This was about stealing a priceless national treasure, a Grade 1 artifact, as payment for a performance. Amelia's hands shook as she wrote her report to the Queen in tiny pencil handwriting. She placed it in Her Majesty's private wooden post box and waited. The response came in the form of a discreet reassignment to Balmoral, the Queen's way of protecting her messenger while she gathered undeniable proof. The package that crossed an ocean. Fast forward to late 2025. Harry sits alone in his Montecito study as the California sun bleeds crimson across the Pacific. The doorbell rings. A plain cardboard box waits on the doorstep. No return address, just layers of brown packing tape wound so tightly it looks ready to explode. Inside, photographs, a USB drive, and a nightmare. The images show Meghan in a camel coat, hair pulled into a high bun, stepping through the automatic doors of Cedars-Sinai. The date stamp reads October 17th, 2017. Exactly 2 weeks before her engagement announcement. Standing nearby, Trevor Engelson, her former husband. The hospital sign above them. Women's Health and Reproductive Medicine. OB/GYN. Harry's hands tremble as he flips the photo over. Handwritten in black ink. "Meghan has been exposed. Ask her what really happened to the baby."
I think you feel really confident that it was divinely ordered. Maybe all of this, our friendship, you becoming art.
More photographs spill out. Meghan and Trevor arriving and leaving the clinic 3 separate times that afternoon. The final image freezes everything. Trevor holding a thick brown medical envelope, the kind used for ultrasound images and prenatal test results. Can you feel Harry's world collapsing? 7 years of defending his wife, of burning bridges with his family, of shouting at his dying grandmother, all potentially based on a carefully constructed lie. The audio that shattered illusions. The USB drive contains a single file, for H only. William's voice emerges from the recording, cold and final. Titles are not a game. This ends before the 3rd anniversary of the Queen's death. Harry and Meghan will lose their ducal titles under the Royal Titles Act of 1917. There will be no negotiations, no postponement, no compassion. Harry's phone vibrates. Unknown number. UK country code. A woman's voice, refined and cold as stone. Prince Harry. The process to revoke the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles has already started. The Privy Council will hold its final vote immediately after the 3rd anniversary memorial.
Certainly after the pandemic and everything else, we crave that. We crave being able to go high.
If you intend to appear and argue in defense of your titles, you have precisely 46 hours. The line goes dead. Harry tells Meghan nothing. He books a private Gulfstream for triple the normal rate and demands it be airborne within an hour. At 2:13 a.m. California time, while Meghan sleeps soundly, the jet roars down the Santa Barbara runway and vanishes into darkness. He never looks back. The interrogation of Trevor Engelson. 2 days after William discovered the diary, a black Mercedes Sprinter with no license plates pulls up outside the Bingham Hotel in Richmond. Inside sit 3 men in dark suits. No ties, no badges, nothing identifiable. Martin Charteris, William's private secretary and great-grandson of the Queen's final private aide, leads the operation. Loyalty to the crown runs through 3 generations of his family. Room 312. Trevor Engelson slouches near the window, clouds of cheap vanilla vape drifting through the air. His eyes are bloodshot from jet lag and half a bottle of Macallan. When the door flies open without warning, he drops the vape onto the carpet. "You have precisely 2 options, Mr. Engelson," Martin says evenly. "Option 1, you cooperate immediately, become a protected witness, and leave the United Kingdom within the hour. Option 2, you remain silent, and within 48 hours, You will be formally extradited on charges of conspiracy to defraud the British Crown and attempted theft of a Grade 1 national treasure. Martin opens a folder. Inside, screenshots of text messages from 2017, messages from Meghan,
40 friends to donate 40 minutes of their time to help mentor a woman who's mobilizing back into the workforce.
accompanied by a photo of the Queen's priceless pearl and diamond lily brooch with the words, "Just say yes," bank statements, phone records, an email. Trevor sent to his attorney asking about the black market value of that exact piece. Do you see how deep this goes? This wasn't just about titles or publicity. This was about using the grief of a dying queen to manipulate an entire institution and planning to steal royal artifacts as payment. Within 5 minutes, Trevor breaks. The confession that changed everything. In 2017, just 3 weeks after the engagement announcement, Meghan called me at 3:10 a.m. Los Angeles time, Trevor says, his voice rough and strained. Her voice was calm, controlled, every word deliberate. "I need you to play one part, Trevor. The heartless ex who forced me to terminate the pregnancy because you didn't want a baby with a biracial actress. I'll handle the tears. You just confirm the story if anyone asks. In return, I'll give you something you could never afford in your lifetime." At first, he refused. Being discarded in the middle of the night had left him with at least a shred of pride. Then she sent the photo of the lily brooch. Just say yes. And he did. The plan was surgical in its precision. In November 2018, during a small internal exhibition at Sandringham, the brooch would be removed from the Buckingham Palace vault for exactly 4 hours. Meghan had studied the schedules while still a guest. She knew when staff rotations changed. She knew the East Corridor camera was obscured by a tapestry under restoration. She knew how to switch inventory labels so the piece would be missing for just 7 minutes. Then she became genuinely pregnant with Archie. The operation was postponed indefinitely. Trevor waited 6 years, too frightened to speak, clinging to the belief she would eventually honor their agreement. Did Prince Harry know about the brooch? Martin asks. Trevor slowly shakes his head. Not directly. But in 2019, right after the Queen asked Harry that last question, Meghan told me word for word, "Harry won't allow anyone to investigate this. He'll choose to believe me over his grandmother." And she was right. The brothers' final confrontation. 5:12 a.m. Farnborough Airfield. Harry's Gulfstream rolls to a stop in fog so thick the landing lights appear as floating specters. A single black Range Rover waits, engine humming. The journey through London passes in complete silence. Harry grips the cardboard box like it might detonate. Clarence House emerges from the dawn haze like a gray apparition. The heavy oak door opens soundlessly. Second floor, private meeting room. William sits alone at the head of the walnut table, the Queen's green leather diary in front of him. Harry enters. No greeting, no handshake, nothing. William slides the diary across the table, his finger resting on the page marked by the red thread. Read! Harry's hands shake as he reads the devastating words. Harry knew, or at the very least he suspected, yet he chose to protect the performance rather than the dignity of this family. He snaps the book shut like it scorched his skin. This was her private diary. You had no right. William cuts him off, his voice cold and cutting. She left it for me. She knew she wouldn't get the chance to say this to you herself. Then William shoves a folder across the table.
It is the most vulnerable, those with the fewest resources, and those who have done the least to cause climate change.
The photographs spill out. Meghan and Trevor, 2017. Cedar Sinai. The OBGYN wing. The timestamps unmistakable. This is because you and your wife invented a tragedy to manipulate an entire family, including a dying woman, William says quietly, his voice heavy as thunder. And you chose to protect that lie instead of protecting her. Harry surges forward like a wounded animal. He grabs the photos and tears them apart in blind fury. Shredded pieces drift to the floor like snow. You never accepted her. From the very beginning, you tried to force her out, and now you're using our dead grandmother as a weapon. William stands, towering over his younger brother. She gave you one last chance at King Edward VII Hospital when she had only months left. One question, and you shouted at a dying queen to defend a performance. Because she was accusing my wife for not being white and British! Harry explodes. William jabs a trembling finger toward the open diary. She wasn't accusing you. She was giving you a chance to tell the truth. You chose silence. You chose to protect a corrupt bargain involving a royal treasure. You chose to betray the woman who loved you more than anyone else. Something inside Harry fractures. He charges forward and drives his fist hard into William's face. The blow cracks through the room. 7 years of resentment, pain, and misunderstanding released in a single strike.
If things are wrong and there is a lack of justice and there's an inequality, then someone needs to say something.
Blood bursts from William's lip and splatters onto the 300-year-old oak floor. William wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. He does not strike back. Listen carefully, Harry. From this moment onward, you and Meghan are no longer members of the British royal family. The titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex are hereby fully revoked. Can you imagine that moment? Brothers who once shared everything, army tents, grief for their mother, childhood secrets, now standing as enemies across an unbridgeable divide? The Privy Council's judgment. The morning following the memorial. Buckingham Palace still carries the scent of white lilies from St. George's Chapel, the fragrance traditionally reserved for royal funerals. Inside room 1844, 21 blood-red velvet chairs are arranged in a horseshoe formation. One chair stands noticeably vacant, the seat assigned to Harry since 2018, a place he never once chose to occupy. William enters precisely at 10 a.m. He wears a black suit with no tie, only the small gold lion pin symbolizing the heir acting in service of duty. He places the Queen's green diary at the exact center of the table, the very spot where she presided for 70 years. "My lords," William states evenly, "as of today, the style of His and Her Royal Highness and the titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex have been fully revoked." The atmosphere turns icy. William opens the diary to its final unsteady page, written when the Queen's strength was nearly gone, and leaves it exposed for all to read. "Do not allow this stain to be passed to our grandchildren. Elizabeth R." "First," William continues, his voice calm yet carrying to every corner, "the Dukedom of Sussex is not personal property, to be wielded as a tool to exploit the compassion of a late sovereign, this family, or the nation itself. Second, the deliberate invention of a tragic story involving an unborn child to silence legitimate scrutiny violates every moral boundary this monarchy has upheld for more than 1,000 years. Third, any individual who knowingly concealed the truth, obstructed verification, and chose to shield a lie rather than confront it, regardless of Windsor blood, shares equal responsibility." The Duke of Norfolk, long known as one of Harry's staunchest supporters, slowly raises a shaking hand. "Your Royal Highness, the public may view this as an act of cold revenge." William meets his gaze without hesitation. "The public has already called us racists, bigots, and tyrants. They will continue to assign names regardless of our actions, but they will forgive a monarchy that defends its principles. They will never forgive one that allows falsehoods to fester until they become the nation's disgrace. Revenge is driven by emotion. Reform is shaped for the future. Today, we choose reform, and we will answer to history." Ballots are passed silently. Each folded slip is placed into an ancient ebony box, the same one used during the abdication crisis of Edward VIII in 1936. The result? 14 votes in favor, 1 abstention, none opposed. William signs the final decree with the Mont Blanc fountain pen once used by the Queen to sign the Treaty of Rome. Full revocation of the titles Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Removal from all official records of the Crown and the Commonwealth. Effective upon publication in this morning's Gazette. The chamber remains silent. There is no applause, no sense of triumph. This is not a victory. It is the overdue funeral of a part of the family that had died long ago. The phone call that revealed everything. Harry avoids every place that feels familiar. Instead, he checks into a nameless airport hotel near Heathrow, 18th floor, last room at the end of the corridor, windows looking straight out over runway. 27R. Jets thunder into the sky every few minutes, their engines drowning out the sounds of anything he might scream into the dark. 11:40 p.m. in London, 3:40 p.m. in California. With trembling hands, he starts a FaceTime call. Meghan answers on the third ring. The lighting is perfect. Her hair pulled into a sleek, high bun. Red lipstick. Immaculate. "Did you see William?" she asks immediately. "Yes." "Are you okay?" "No." "How was the flight?" Not a trace of concern in her voice. "It's over," Harry says, his voice shredded by exhaustion and heartbreak. "Did we keep the titles?" That's all she wants to know. Sharp and precise. Harry stays silent for 5 seconds, long enough for everything to collapse. Meghan's tone flips instantly, turning shrill and venomous. "Oh my God, Harry! Are you really that useless? 7 years and the one thing you were supposed to do was protect those damn titles. How did you mess that up?" Harry laughs, a hollow, broken sound. "I protected them for 7 years," he says quietly. "I betrayed my grandmother for you. I shouted at a dying queen because I chose to trust you. And now I've lost everything, Meghan. Absolutely everything." She cuts him off without hesitation. "Don't you dare play the victim. You loved those titles too. You loved being called Duke. Loved the invitations, the money, the yachts, the photos. You lost. Deal with it. Don't pin this on me." Harry stares directly into her eyes on the screen. "Do you regret any of it? Even a little? For her? For me? For the kids? Anything at all? What happens next will chill you to your core." Meghan's lips slowly curl into a smile so cold it could stop a heart. "Regret is for losers," she says calmly. "I played my game. You lost, Harry. Accept it." She ends the call before he can say another word. The screen goes black, reflecting a man who looks 15 years older than he did the night before. The aftermath. On the other side of the world, Meghan sets her phone down and turns to her assistant waiting in the bright California living room. "Schedule a press conference in 48 hours, Meghan says briskly. Headline: The British royal family continues to racially bully and seek revenge against a biracial mother and her innocent children. Bring in the New York crisis team. Call Oprah if necessary. Make it massive. Make the entire world cry for us." A pause. "And have the glycerin tears ready. This time they need to look real." Meanwhile, Harry remains in that anonymous 18th floor room, staring out at Heathrow's endless departures. He finally understands that the word home no longer applies to him. No flight he takes, no council ruling, no remaining fortune can return what he has lost: his family, his honor, the man he once was. The planes continue to roar into the sky. Harry doesn't move. The palace's strategic silence. While Meghan assembles her crisis team in California, something extraordinary happens at Buckingham Palace. Absolute silence. No press releases. No defensive statements. No anonymous sources leaking to sympathetic journalists. This strategic silence is deliberate, calculated, and devastating in its effectiveness. William understands something Meghan doesn't. In the age of social media, the first person to speak isn't always the most believed. Sometimes, the person who waits, who lets the evidence speak for itself, holds the ultimate power. Within 24 hours of the Privy Council's decision, carefully curated leaks begin appearing in respected publications. Not tabloids, not gossip sites, the Times of London, the Telegraph, the Financial Times. Each leak contains a single piece of irrefutable evidence, a high-resolution scan of one page from the Queen's diary, authenticated by 3 independent handwriting experts, a time-stamped photograph of Meghan and Trevor at Cedars-Sinai, verified by the hospital's own security footage metadata, a partial transcript of Trevor's confession, corroborated by bank records showing unusual payments in 2017. The palace doesn't need to defend itself. The evidence does it instead. The world watches and waits. Social media explodes within hours, but this time something different happens. The usual defenders, the ones who reflexively cry racism at any criticism of Meghan, find themselves strangely silent when confronted with medical records, diary entries, and confession transcripts. How do you claim racism when the evidence is a dead queen's handwritten diary? How do you play the victim when your own ex-husband has confessed to the entire scheme? How do you manufacture sympathy when you're caught on record telling Trevor exactly how to lie about forcing an abortion? The hashtags tell the story. Hashtag Queen Elizabeth knew trends worldwide within 6 hours. Hashtag Meghan exposed reaches 2.3 million tweets in the first day. Hashtag Justice for the Queen becomes the rallying cry for those who always suspected something wasn't right. But there's another hashtag that cuts even deeper. Hashtag Harry knew. Because that's the real tragedy here. The evidence suggests Harry wasn't a victim of Meghan's deception. He was a willing participant who chose to protect the lie rather than honor the woman who raised him. The Commonwealth responds. The reaction from Commonwealth nations is swift and unforgiving. Canada, which had paid nearly $10 million in security costs during Harry and Meghan's brief residence, releases a terse statement. Canada respects the decision of the Privy Council and will adjust all official protocols accordingly. Translation: don't come back expecting royal treatment. Australia's Prime Minister, never one for diplomatic subtlety, goes further. Australia has always valued honesty and integrity. We stand with the British monarchy in defending these principles against those who would exploit them for personal gain. New Zealand simply removes all references to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex from government websites. No statement, no explanation, just erasure. The message from the Commonwealth is clear. You don't manipulate a dying queen and expect the rest of the family to welcome you back. The financial devastation. But the real consequences are financial, and they're catastrophic. Within 48 hours of the title revocation, Meghan and Harry's carefully constructed business empire begins to crumble. Netflix announces it will not renew their production deal, citing creative differences and changes in partnership circumstances. The remaining $40 million of their contract, voided due to morality clauses neither of them read carefully. Spotify, which already canceled their podcast deal in 2023, releases a statement saying they dodged a bullet and are grateful we parted ways when we did. Penguin Random House quietly removes by the Duke of Sussex from all future printings of Spare, replacing it with simply by Prince Harry. The book's sales, which had already slowed to a trickle, flatline completely. Speaking engagements? Cancelled. Who wants to pay $1 million to hear from someone exposed as complicit in deceiving their dying grandmother? Brand partnerships dissolved. Dior, Givenchy, and a dozen other luxury brands distanced themselves with remarkable speed. The Montecito Mansion, purchased for $14.65 million with a massive mortgage, suddenly becomes an albatross. Property taxes alone run $130,000 per year. Without the Netflix and Spotify deals, without the book royalties, without the speaking fees, how do they pay for it? Financial analysts estimate Meghan and Harry's net worth will drop from approximately $60 million to less than $10 million within 2 years. And that's if they're smart with what remains. The legal implications. But the financial devastation is nothing compared to the legal exposure. Trevor's confession opens a Pandora's box of potential charges. Conspiracy to defraud the crown. Planning to steal the Queen's lily brooch is a serious crime in the UK, with potential prison sentences up to 10 years. Perjury. If Meghan ever testified under oath about the pregnancy story, in court documents, legal depositions, or official statements, she's exposed to perjury charges. Immigration fraud. Did Meghan make false statements on visa applications or citizenship documents? If the fabricated pregnancy was mentioned in any official immigration paperwork, that's grounds for deportation and permanent bans. Theft by deception. Using a false story to gain titles, privileges, security, and financial benefits could constitute theft by deception under UK law. William's legal team hasn't filed charges. Yet. But the threat hangs over everything like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. The message is clear. Accept the title revocation quietly, or face potential prosecution. Harry's impossible choice. Back in that hotel room overlooking Heathrow, Harry faces an impossible choice. He can return to Montecito and pretend nothing has changed, keep up the appearance of a united front with Meghan, watch their empire crumble while she plans the next publicity stunt, live the rest of his life knowing he chose a lie over his grandmother's dying wish. Or he can do something far more difficult. Admit he was wrong. Admit he suspected the truth, but was too proud, too stubborn, too deeply invested in the narrative to face it. Admit that when his grandmother asked that simple question in September 2019, he already knew the answer but chose to shout instead of confess. Admit that he spent 7 years defending the indefensible because admitting the truth would mean admitting he'd wasted those years. That's the real torture of Harry's situation. It's not that he's been betrayed. It's that somewhere deep down, beneath all the denial and defensiveness, he's always known. The Queen knew it too. That's why her diary entry was so devastating. Harry knew, or at the very least he suspected. She saw through him. She gave him one final chance, and he chose pride over honesty. The truth behind the headlines. So what really happened? Let's break down the evidence that William uncovered. The Queen's diary. 7 years of meticulous observations documenting inconsistencies, performative grief, and ultimately, the devastating truth that Harry chose a lie over his dying grandmother. The medical records. Photographs proving Meghan visited Cedars-Sinai's OB/GYN department with Trevor Engelson in October 2017, 2 weeks before announcing her engagement to Harry, for what appeared to be a 16-week prenatal appointment. Trevor's confession, a detailed admission of the entire scheme, including the plan to steal the Queen's Lily brooch as payment for playing the role of the heartless ex-husband who forced an abortion. Amelia's testimony, an eyewitness account of Meghan coaching Trevor on the exact story to tell, overheard in a camera-free corridor of the palace. The timeline that doesn't add up. If Meghan was 16 weeks pregnant in October 2017, that would place conception in late June or early July, months before she was even seriously dating Harry. The questions that remain. Was there ever actually a pregnancy? Or was this elaborate scheme planned from the beginning to create a sympathetic narrative that would make Meghan untouchable to criticism? Why would someone go to such lengths, fabricating a tragedy, involving an ex-husband, planning to steal royal artifacts, all for titles and status, and perhaps most heartbreaking of all? Could Harry have prevented all of this if he'd simply answered his grandmother's question honestly that day in September 2019? The Queen gave him one chance, one question. Are you absolutely certain that everything Meghan has told you is true? Instead of pausing, instead of investigating, instead of honoring the woman who raised him with unconditional love, Harry exploded in anger and accused her of racism. That was his last opportunity, and he chose the performance over the truth. Why this matters to you? This isn't just royal gossip or tabloid drama. This is a story about truth, manipulation, and the devastating consequences of choosing loyalty to a lie over loyalty to family. It's about how far some people will go for status, titles, and the appearance of victimhood. It's about a grandmother who saw the truth but couldn't speak it because she knew it would destroy her beloved grandson. It's about a brother forced to carry out the painful duty of protecting the institution his grandmother devoted her life to, even if it meant severing ties with his only sibling. And it's about a man who lost everything, his family, his titles, his identity, because he refused to see what everyone around him could see clearly. The final question. Outside that anonymous hotel room, London wakes to a new day. One that has no place left for the Duke of Sussex, because there is no Duke of Sussex anymore. Just Harry, alone, stripped of titles, watching planes leave without him. And across the ocean, Meghan prepares her next performance. Glycerin tears at the ready, crisis team assembled, ready to play the victim one more time. But this time, The evidence is irrefutable. The Queen's own words, written in her final days, expose the truth. The question is, will the world believe a carefully constructed narrative of victimhood and racism? Or will they finally see the evidence for what it is? Proof that some people will exploit any tragedy, fabricate any story, and betray any trust to get what they want. What do you think happened? Was Meghan's story true? Or was it the performance of a lifetime designed to manipulate a dying queen and an entire institution? The evidence speaks for itself, but the court of public opinion is still in session, and your verdict matters.